John woke up one morning to a strange sight. The world outside his window was blanketed in a thick layer of frost, and the air seemed to shimmer with an ethereal glow. He rubbed his eyes, thinking it was a dream, but the cold seeping through the glass was all too real. The trees, the grass, even the sky seemed to be encased in a crystalline shell. It was as if time itself had stopped, leaving everything in a state of suspended animation. The world around him was eerily silent, and everyone he knew appeared frozen in time. The bustling street that usually greeted him with the sounds of morning traffic and chattering neighbors was now a tableau of stillness. Cars were halted mid-motion, their drivers and passengers locked in place as if they were statues. The air was devoid of the usual hum of life, replaced by an unsettling quiet that seemed to press in on him from all sides. His wife stood in the kitchen, mid-pour with the coffee pot suspended in the air. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the room, a stark contrast to the frozen scene before him. Her expression was one of serene concentration, her eyes focused on the task at hand, completely unaware of the bizarre transformation that had taken place. The coffee, caught in midstream, glistened like liquid amber, a perfect arc frozen in time. His dog was caught mid-jump, frozen in a playful pose. The loyal companion, always so full of energy and life, now seemed like a lifelike sculpture, suspended in the air with its ears flapping and tongue lolling out. The sight was both heartwarming and eerie, a reminder of the vibrant life that had once filled their home. John reached out to touch the dog, half expecting it to spring back to life, but it remained as still as the rest of the world. Confusion and fear gripped John as he tried to make sense of what was happening. His mind raced with questions, each more bewildering than the last. How had this happened? Was it some kind of elaborate prank, or had the world truly been frozen in time? The more he thought about it, the more his head spun with the impossibility of it all. He felt a growing sense of dread, a gnawing fear that he was the only one left unaffected by this strange phenomenon. As he cautiously stepped outside, he noticed a figure lurking in the shadows. The figure was barely visible, a dark silhouette against the backdrop of the frozen world. It moved with an otherworldly grace, its movements fluid and deliberate, as if it were gliding through the air. John felt a chill run down his spine, a primal instinct warning him of danger. He hesitated, torn between the urge to confront the figure and the fear of what he might discover. It seemed to move with an otherworldly grace, its features obscured by darkness. The figure's presence was both mesmerizing and terrifying, a stark contrast to the stillness that surrounded it. John could feel its gaze upon him, a piercing intensity that seemed to see right through him. He took a step forward, his heart pounding in his chest, and the figure mirrored his movement, closing the distance between them with an eerie precision. John's heart raced as he realized that this figure was the only other entity moving in this frozen world. The realization hit him like a bolt of lightning, a sudden clarity that brought with it a surge of adrenaline. He knew he had to find out who or what this figure was, and why it was the only thing unaffected by the frozen state of the world. With each step he took, the figure seemed to grow more distinct, its features slowly coming into focus. John could see the outline of a face, the glint of eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 secrets. He felt a strange connection to the figure, a sense of familiarity that he couldn't quite place. It was as if he had seen it before, in a dream or a distant memory. The figure raised a hand, beckoning him closer, and John felt an irresistible pull, a compulsion to follow. He took another step, and then another, until he was standing just a few feet away. The figure's face was now fully visible, and John gasped in shock. It was a reflection of himself, a mirror image that seemed to be both him and not him at the same time. The figure spoke, its voice a haunting echo of his own. "Welcome to the frozen world," it said, "a place where time stands still and only the chosen can move freely." John felt a wave of emotions wash over him, fear, curiosity, and a strange sense of destiny. He knew that his life would never be the same again. that he had been thrust into a world beyond his understanding. But he also felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that he could uncover the truth and find a way to restore the world to its natural state. With a deep breath, he took the figure's hand, ready to embark on a journey into the unknown. The shadowy figure began to follow John wherever he went. Its presence felt malevolent, sending shivers down his spine. No matter how fast or far John ran, the figure was always there, just at the edge of his vision. At night, when darkness enveloped the world, the figure's presence became more pronounced. Its whispers echoed in John's ears, filling his mind with dread and despair. Sleep became elusive as nightmares plagued his every moment of rest. Days turned into weeks, as John struggled to cope with this haunting presence. The isolation and fear gnawed at his sanity, pushing him to the brink of madness. He started seeing glimpses of twisted faces in the shadows, hearing disembodied laughter echoing through the empty streets. Unable to distinguish reality from illusion, John's mind became a battleground between reason and terror. The line between waking and dreaming blurred until he could no longer trust his senses. One fateful night, as John wandered through the deserted town square, he felt a sudden chill run down his spine. The shadowy figure materialized before him, its form shifting and contorting in unnatural ways. With a voice that seemed to echo from beyond the grave, it spoke to John. "You cannot escape me," it whispered, sending icy tendrils of fear through John's very being. Summoning all his courage, John faced the figure head-on. In a final act of defiance, he challenged the entity that had tormented him for so long. As their eyes locked in a silent battle of wills, reality itself seemed to warp and twist around them. In a blinding flash of light, time unfroze around them. The world seemed to shudder as if awakening from a long, deep slumber. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, a palpable sense of something monumental having just occurred. The frozen clock, which had been ticking backwards in eerie silence, suddenly resumed its normal pace, marking the passage of time once more. It was as if the universe had taken a deep breath and was now exhaling, releasing the pent-up energy that had been held in stasis. People resumed their daily activities as if nothing had happened. The streets were bustling with life, a cacophony of sounds and movements that seemed almost too normal in the wake of the extraordinary event. Cars honked, pedestrians hurried along the sidewalks, and the city thrummed with its usual vibrancy. It was a stark contrast to the surreal stillness that had enveloped everything just moments before. The world had moved on, oblivious to the anomaly that had briefly disrupted its rhythm. But for John, nothing would ever be the same again. He stood amidst the throng of people, feeling utterly disconnected from the reality that surrounded him. His mind was a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief, struggling to process the events that had just transpired. The faces of the people around him blurred into an indistinct mass, their voices a distant murmur that barely registered in his consciousness. He felt like a stranger in his own life, adrift in a sea of normalcy that seemed alien and unrecognizable. The shadowy figure had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only lingering echoes of its malevolence. It was as if the darkness itself had swallowed it whole, erasing any evidence of its existence. Yet the memory of its presence lingered in John's mind, a haunting reminder of the terror he had faced. The figure's malevolent aura seemed to cling to him, a shadow that refused to be dispelled by the light of day. It was a specter that haunted his thoughts, a constant reminder of the unknown forces that lurked just beyond the veil of reality. Haunted by his ordeal, John struggled to come to terms with what had transpired in those surreal moments of frozen time. His nights were plagued by vivid nightmares, his days filled with a pervasive sense of unease. The boundary between reality and illusion had become blurred, leaving him questioning the very nature of his existence. He saw ghostly visions in the corners of his eyes, fleeting glimpses of the shadowy figure that had tormented him. His mind was a battleground, a place where the past and present collided in a chaotic dance of fear and uncertainty. The memory of the shadowy figure continued to linger in his mind like a festering wound that refused to heal. It was a constant presence, a dark stain on his consciousness that he could not erase. Every shadow seemed to hold a hint of its malevolence, every dark corner a potential hiding place for the entity that had so profoundly altered his life. John's haunted expression reflected the turmoil within, a silent testament to the inner battle he waged against the memories that refused to fade. As days turned into months and years passed by, John found himself questioning his own sanity. The passage of time did little to dull the sharp edges of his memories, and the relentless march of days only served to deepen his sense of isolation. He watched as the world continued to move forward, leaving him behind in a state of perpetual uncertainty. The calendar pages flipped rapidly, a visual representation of the time that slipped through his fingers like sand. The clock hands spun out of control, mirroring the chaos that reigned within his mind. Was it all just a hallucination brought on by stress and fear? John pondered this question endlessly, his mind a labyrinth of doubt and confusion. He replayed the events over and over, searching for some rational explanation that could make sense of the inexplicable. But no matter how many times he revisited that moment, he could not shake the feeling that what he had experienced was real. The hallucinations continued to plague him, distorting his perception of reality and leaving him trapped in a nightmarish loop of uncertainty. Or had he truly encountered something beyond human comprehension? The question gnawed at him, a persistent whisper in the back of his mind that refused to be silenced. He stared into the void, his expression one of bewildered contemplation. The supernatural imagery that filled his thoughts was both surreal and unsettling, a reminder of the thin veil that separated the known from the unknown. John was left to grapple with the possibility that he had glimpsed something far greater than himself, a force that defied explanation and challenged the very foundations of his understanding. The unraveling of his reality was complete, leaving him to navigate a world forever changed by the encounter that had shattered the boundaries of his perception.